During a family dinner, my father-in-law slapped my son and pushed him to the floor. His daughter laughed. "Thanks, Dad. Maybe that will teach him." My blood ran cold. I got up and dialed a number. They have no idea who they're dealing with. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you are listening in the comments. I hadn't seen my son Titus in 3 months when the invitation came. A text from Violet, my daughter-in-law, not from him. Dinner Sunday, 6:30. No warmth, no explanation for the silence. Just a summons. I drove to their house in Ballard that evening with cautious hope, the kind you develop at 67 when life has taught you that reconciliation rarely comes without strings. The Craftsman home on 24th Avenue looked the same, porch light glowing, my grandson's bicycle lying in the grass. I'd bought that bike for his birthday last year, the party I wasn't invited to. Violet answered the door. Her smile was precise, practiced, stopping precisely at her lips. "Winfield, come in." Not Dad Curtis like she used to call me. Just my name, delivered like she was signing for a package. Titus stood in the dining room and my chest tightened. Dark circles shadowed his eyes. His shoulders curved forward like he was bracing for impact. When he saw me, something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe, or warning. He hugged me quickly and I felt how thin he'd become. "Hey, Dad, thanks for coming." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, though we both knew I'd missed plenty lately, not by choice. Dinner started quietly. Pot roast, roasted vegetables, the dishes I'd given them as a wedding gift 5 years ago. I remembered writing the check for their wedding, $25,000. Violet had hugged me that day, called me generous, said she was lucky to have me as family. That woman seemed like someone I'd imagined. "How's the freelancing going?" I asked Titus, cutting into the meat. He opened his mouth, but Violet spoke first. "Freelancing isn't stable. We've been discussing more reliable options." "I have steady clients," Titus said quietly. "The work's good." "Computer work," Violet said, her tone dismissive. "Not exactly." The front door opened without a knock, heavy boots on hardwood. My daughter-in-law's father, Philemon Walters, walked into the dining room wearing work clothes with Walters Construction LLC stitched across the chest. He hadn't been invited to dinner, yet no one seemed surprised by his arrival. "Violet, sweetheart." He kissed her cheek, ignored Titus entirely, then turned to me. "Winfield, still living in that old place on 85th? "Still there," I said evenly. "Must be tough on a government pension." He pulled out a chair without asking, sat down like he owned the table. "I keep telling Titus here he needs to learn real work, construction, hands-on labor, something with value." I watched Titus's jaw tighten. He stared at his plate. "Design is valuable work," I said. Philemon laughed, a harsh bark. "Sitting at a computer playing with pictures? That's not work. That's a hobby." I offered him a real position at my company, but he keeps making excuses. "I have commitments," Titus began. "To what? Playing with graphics?" Philemon leaned back, arms crossed. "Your father probably never achieved much either, living in that shack. Low expectations run in families, I suppose." Violet smiled, actually smiled. I took a sip of water, let the insult settle into the quiet space between my ribs. The glasses were from the wedding gift, too. I'd spent 3 hours picking them out, wanting Titus to have something nice, something that said, I believed in his marriage. At my age, I'd learned that defending yourself against people like Philemon only encourages them. So, I set down my glass carefully and said, "Well, at my age, low expectations have their advantages." Philemon's expression suggested he'd expected anger, not self-deprecation. He shifted in his seat, looked at Violet. The rest of dinner blurred into a montage of small cruelties. Violet mentioned that Titus had been doing free design work for Walters Construction. "Family helps family," she said brightly, as if unpaid labor was a gift. Philemon detailed his business success with numbers that sounded impressive until you considered he was still wearing work clothes to dinner, unable to afford a separation between his life and his company. I noticed things. The way Titus flinched when Violet's voice rose. How he apologized constantly for the temperature of the food, for forgetting to buy the right wine, for having a client call interrupt dinner. The expensive camera I'd given him for his birthday sat in the corner on a shelf, gathering dust. When I asked about it, Violet said, "Hobbies are fine, but they don't pay bills." I excused myself to use the bathroom. Walking through their hallway, I scanned the walls. Photos of Violet's family covered every surface. Her parents, her siblings, nieces, and nephews. Not a single picture of Titus with me. Not one of my grandson with his grandfather. I was erased, archived, removed from the visual history of their family. When I returned, Philemon was lecturing Titus about stepping up and being a man. My son nodded, mumbled agreement, shrank smaller with each word. I remembered teaching Titus to ride a bike. He was 7, skinny-legged and determined. He fell 6 times before he got it right, came back every time with scraped knees and absolute focus. "Again, Dad," he'd say. "Let me try again." That boy wouldn't recognize this man. Dinner ended mercifully around 9:30. As I stood to leave, Titus walked me to my car. Away from the lit windows in the darkness of the driveway, I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Fear. "Dad, he started, then glanced back at the house. Violet stood silhouetted in the doorway, arms crossed. "It's okay, son," I said quietly. But it wasn't okay. And driving home through Seattle's rain-slicked streets, I realized I'd been fooling myself for months. This wasn't a rough patch in their marriage. This was something else entirely. My phone buzzed at a red light. Titus. "Sorry about tonight?" I stared at those 3 words. Sorry. As if he had done something wrong. The Safeway on Greenwood Avenue was running a sale on apples. I stood in the produce section the following Thursday, comparing Honeycrisps to Fuji's, trying to convince myself that normal routines could smooth over the knot in my chest. An older woman needs consistency. Shopping on Thursdays, the same store, the same careful selection of fruit that would last the week. "Winfield," I turned. Sadie Thornton, my neighbor from 3 houses down, pushed a cart toward me. She'd been a court secretary 20 years ago, back when I was still prosecuting cases. We'd crossed paths again when I moved to Greenwood, shared the occasional conversation about property values and Seattle weather. "Sadie, how are you?" "Good, good. Say, was that Titus visiting you last night? I saw his car." I set down the apple I'd been examining. "Last night? Around 8 o'clock. That blue Honda he drives was parked right in front of your place. Sat there for quite a while, actually. 20 minutes, maybe more. I figured you two were having a long chat." 20 minutes. My son had sat outside my house for 20 minutes and never knocked. "He probably got a phone call," I said, keeping my voice light. "You know how it is." Sadie's expression shifted, something concerned flickering across her face. "Is everything all right with him?" He looked, I don't know, troubled. "Just busy with work. Thanks for mentioning it, Sadie." I finished shopping on autopilot, drove home, sat at my kitchen table staring at the old legal pad I kept in the drawer, a habit from 3 decades of building cases. I didn't write anything dramatic, just dates and times. March 9th, dinner at Ballard House. Philemon. Low expectations run in families. Violet. Hobbies don't pay bills. Titus. Multiple apologies, flinching when wife raised voice. March 13th. Titus sat outside my house, never came in. The following 2 weeks crawled past. Titus texted sporadically. "Busy." "Sorry." "Later." Each message shorter than the last, like he was rationing words. I invited him to coffee twice. Both times he declined with vague excuses about deadlines and appointments. I didn't push. Pushing would make things worse. On a Tuesday afternoon in early April, my phone rang. Violet, not Titus. "Winfield, it's Violet. I'm calling about dinner." "Hello, Violet. How are you?" She ignored the pleasantry. "We'd like you to come to dinner this Sunday, April 6th, 6 o'clock. "That sounds fine. What's the occasion?" "Dad, Philemon, wants to discuss something important. About Titus's future." I paused, let the silence stretch. Titus's future. Not our future, not family plans. His future, spoken like he was a project to be managed. "I see. Will Titus be there?" "Of course. It's his future we're discussing." Her tone had an edge, like she expected resistance. I gave her the opposite. "Then I'll be there." A beat of surprise. "Oh, good. 6 o'clock sharp." She hung up before I could respond. Sunday came with typical Seattle drizzle. I showered, dressed in khakis and a button-down shirt, checked that my phone was fully charged. Washington is a one-party consent state for recordings, a fact I'd relied on countless times as a prosecutor. Not that I was planning anything specific, just being prepared. I arrived at 6 exactly. Brought a bottle of wine, nothing expensive, the kind of hostess gift that demonstrated courtesy without warmth. Violet accepted it with a nod. No thank you. The dining room felt different this time, colder, despite the same lighting. Philemon was already seated at the head of the table, though it was Titus's house. My son looked worse than he had 3 weeks ago. His hands trembled slightly as he poured water. We sat. No small talk, no "how have you been?" Philemon launched directly into his agenda. Titus, I've been patient, but it's time you stepped up and joined my company full time. I appreciate the offer, Titus began carefully, but I've built a client base. Philemon's hand hit the table. The glasses jumped. Your computer games aren't a career. I'm offering you $2,800 a month, steady income, real work. That's, Titus's voice wavered, that's less than half what I make now. Money isn't everything, Titus. Violet leaned forward. Family is. Dad's offering you stability. But I am stable. I have contracts through... You're a failure! Philemon's voice filled the room. Just like him. He jabbed a finger at me. Look at your father, 67 years old, living in that dump. Is that what you want? I continued eating, chewing methodically. Pot roast again. Not as good as last time. Titus stood abruptly, chair scraping back. I need some air. Excuse me? You sit down. Philemon rose too, looming. We're not finished. I just need a minute. I said sit down! Philemon's hand shot out, grabbed Titus's shoulder. He shoved, hard, sudden. Titus stumbled backward, caught his heel on the chair leg, went down. The sound of him hitting the floor was dull, meaty. Before he could get up, Philemon stepped forward and slapped him across the face. The crack echoed like a gunshot in the sudden silence. Violet laughed, actually laughed. Thanks, Dad. Maybe this will teach him to listen. Time stretched. Titus on the floor, hand pressed to his reddening cheek. Violet standing above him with that smile. Philemon breathing hard, flushed with exertion and satisfaction. I set down my fork, placed my napkin beside my plate, stood slowly. Philemon turned to me, apparently expecting approval, or at least silence. Sometimes you have to use a firm hand. Right, Winfield? Old school discipline. The dining room felt very small, very quiet despite his heavy breathing. Excuse me a moment, I said. My voice was calm. Too calm. I reached for my phone. Philemon turned to me, apparently expecting approval. His face was flushed, chest heaving with exertion and what looked like satisfaction. You understand, right, Winfield? Old school discipline. Sometimes young people need a firm hand to learn respect. I stood slowly, set my fork down beside my plate with care. Excuse me a moment. Good, Philemon said, misreading my calm entirely. Get some air. This is between us and Titus anyway. I walked to the kitchen, 10 steps, maybe 12. Through the doorway I could still see the dining room, Titus on the floor, one hand pressed to his reddening cheek, Violet standing over him with her arms crossed, Philemon settling back into his chair like a king on a throne. My phone came out smoothly. 35 years as a prosecutor teaches you certain skills. Evidence first. Always evidence first. I activated the camera, positioned it on the counter, angled toward the dining room, pressed record. Then I made the call. Marcus, this is Winfield Curtis. Detective Marcus Reed's voice carried surprise. Winfield? Is this... Wait, the Winfield Curtis? Yes, I need your assistance. I'm witnessing domestic assault. Adult male victim, adult male perpetrator. Physical violence, including a strike to the face. Victim still on the floor. Location? 6547 24th Avenue Northwest, Ballard. I'm on scene now. I have video evidence of the incident. We're 3 minutes out. Are you in danger? No. The perpetrator believes I'm a harmless old man. He's currently still berating the victim. Reed's pause was brief. Are you recording this call too? Video recording of the ongoing situation? Yes. You're familiar with Washington's consent laws. One party? Understood. Units rolling now. I ended the call, picked up my phone, returned to the dining room. Slipped the phone into my shirt pocket with the camera lens visible. They didn't notice. Too focused on their educational moment. Please, I said, sitting down. Continue. Philemon barely paused. As I was saying, Titus, you'll start at my company Monday. $2,800 a month. Violet actually pulled out a notepad, and started writing. And you'll need to sell that camera. No more wasting money on hobbies. I lifted my water glass, took a sip. What exactly would Titus's role be, Philemon? He leaned back, happy to explain. Website design, logos, marketing materials, real work that supports an actual business. Would that be compensated separately from the $2,800? Philemon scoffed. That is the compensation. He gets steady income, I get professional services. Fair trade. Titus spoke from the floor, voice barely above a whisper. That's not fair trade. Those services are worth... You don't get to negotiate. Philemon's fist hit the table. You're in no position to negotiate anything. I glanced at my watch. 6 minutes since the call, the serving platter sat between us, pot roast congealing in its own juices. Violet was still writing her list. Oil 1, sell camera 2, start at Walters Construction. Monday 3, stop wasting time on freelance clients. Like she was planning a grocery trip instead of dismantling her husband's career. Titus looked at me then, really looked at me. Something in his expression shifted, confused by my stillness, my silence. I gave him the smallest nod. Trust me, son? Just trust me. 8 minutes. The doorbell rang. Violet's head snapped up, irritated. Who would come by this late? Ignore it, Philemon said. We're not done here. The doorbell rang again, more insistent. Violet stood with an exasperated sigh. This is ridiculous. She walked to the front door. I heard it open, heard her sharp intake of breath. Good evening, a uniformed officer said. We received a report of a domestic disturbance at this address. What? Violet's voice rose half an octave. There's no disturbance. This is a family matter. Private. Detective Marcus Reed stepped into view behind the patrol officer. Even after 6 years, I recognized him. Same sharp eyes, same careful posture of someone who'd seen too much and forgotten none of it. Ma'am, we need to come inside. We have probable cause to enter based on the call we received. You can't just... Violet started. RCW 1031 I-100 permits us to enter without warrant when domestic violence is suspected. Please step aside. Violet stepped back, face draining of color. The officers entered, Reed scanning the room with professional efficiency. His gaze moved from Titus on the floor to Philemon standing over him, to the dining table where I sat with my water glass raised halfway to my lips. Our eyes met. He gave the smallest nod, and I smiled. Who the hell called you? Philemon was on his feet. This is harassment, private property. Detective Reed's expression didn't change. We received a call from Mr. Curtis here, reporting witnessing a domestic assault. Philemon turned to me. You? You called the cops on family? Reed pulled out his notebook. Mr. Curtis, can you confirm the information from our phone call? Yes, Detective Reed. I witnessed Mr. Walters physically assault my son, shoving him to the floor and striking him across the face. Wait. Philemon's eyes narrowed. You two are on a first-name basis? What is this? Mr. Curtis and I have worked together previously, Reed said evenly. He was a federal prosecutor for 35 years. The silence lasted 3 heartbeats. What? Violet's voice cracked. A prosecutor? Philemon's face reddened. You're lying. U.S. Attorney's Office, Western District of Washington, I said. I retired in 2020. Reed turned to me. Do you have the footage you mentioned? I handed him my phone. 7 minutes. Starting after the initial assault, shows continued verbal abuse and coercion. Reed watched, face neutral, Officer Thompson peering over his shoulder. When he looked up, his expression was professionally blank, but I saw the flicker of recognition in his eyes. Good evidence. Solid case. Mr. Walters, Reed said, can you explain what I'm seeing here? That's illegal, Philemon sputtered. You can't record people without permission. Washington is a one-party consent state, sir. Mr. Curtis had every legal right to record. Now, this footage shows you striking Mr. Titus Curtis across the face. What's your explanation? He needed to learn respect. He's weak, like his father. Philemon caught himself, but too late. So, you admit striking him? It wasn't, he needed discipline, Officer Thompson wrote in his notebook. Suspect acknowledges physical contact with victim. Reed turned to Titus, still on the floor. Sir, I need to ask, Do you wish to file charges against Mr. Walters for assault? Titus! Violet's voice was sharp. Don't you dare! He's my father! Titus looked down at his hands. I don't know. I spoke quietly. It's your choice, son. No one can make it for you. Whatever you decide, I support you. If you do this, you're destroying this family, Violet said. Think about what you're doing, boy, Philemon added from across the room. Titus was silent for a long moment. Then he looked up, at Violet, at Philemon, then at me. Something settled in his expression. He hit me, Titus said, voice steady, in my own home, and she laughed. He turned to Reed. Yes, I want to file charges. Violet gasped. Titus! You need to leave, Violet, my son said. Both of you need to leave. Reed nodded to Thompson, who moved toward Philemon. Mr. Philemon Walters, you're under arrest for assault in the 4th degree under RCW 9A 36.41. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. This is insane! Philemon jerked away as Thompson pulled out handcuffs. Over a little discipline? Assault on an adult is a criminal offense in Washington state, Reed said. You can explain your actions to your attorney. The handcuffs clicked into place. Philemon's face had gone from red to purple. You'll pay for this. I have lawyers. I'll sue you for everything. I remained seated, hands folded. You'll need an excellent attorney, Mr. Walters. I recommend retaining one immediately. You manipulative old... Sir, Thompson interrupted. I'd advise you to stop talking. They led him toward the door. At the threshold, Philemon twisted back. This isn't over, I met his eyes. No, it isn't. Violet was crying now, following them. Dad, I'll call someone. I'll fix this. Reed stayed behind, taking photographs, Titus's face, the dining room, Violet's list still sitting on the table, professional documentation, building the case. I'd done the same thing 1,000 times. I'll need statements from both of you, Reed said to us. Can you come to the precinct tomorrow morning? We'll be there, I said. Titus stood slowly, testing his balance. Violet appeared in the doorway, mascara streaked down her cheeks. Where are you going? She demanded as Titus moved toward the stairs. To pack a bag. If you leave with him, don't come back. Titus paused on the bottom step. I think that's best. I followed him upstairs, watched him pull a duffel bag from the closet, methodically folding clothes, his laptop, toiletries, the Canon camera from the corner. He held it for a moment, then carefully wrapped it in a sweatshirt. Violet appeared in the doorway. Her voice had changed from angry to desperate. Titus, please, we can fix this. Dad didn't mean... He meant it, Titus said, without looking at her. And you laughed. I was just trying to... You laughed, Violet. He zipped the bag. We walked downstairs together, through the living room, past the family photos that didn't include me, out to the driveway where red and blue lights still painted the street. I helped Titus load his bag into my car. Violet stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching. Behind her, the patrol car sat at the curb, Philemon's silhouette visible in the back seat. Where are we going? Titus asked as I started the engine. Home, I said. My home. You'll stay with me until we figure out next steps. He nodded then. Dad, why didn't you ever tell me about being a prosecutor? I pulled onto the street, watching Philemon's shape in the rearview mirror. Because I didn't want you to know me for what I did. I wanted you to know me for who I am. And who are you? Your father, that's all that matters. Violet was on her phone already. Calling an attorney probably, calling family, probably not realizing that everything had changed tonight. The old prosecutor in me noted the time, just after 9. The arrest was just the first move. The real work would begin tomorrow. We drove in silence for the first 10 minutes. Titus stared out the window at the passing streetlights, processing. I let him think. Finally, Dad, last night, Detective Reed called you by name. Captain Morrison practically saluted. Who are you? I'd known this conversation was coming, had prepared for it since the moment I'd made that phone call. Still, the words felt strange after so many years of silence. I was a federal prosecutor, U.S. Attorney's Office, Western District of Washington. 35 years. His head turned slowly. You prosecuted federal cases? Organized crime, public corruption, major fraud. The Bellingham drug ring in 2017, that was my case. 17 defendants, all convicted. Why didn't you ever tell me? The question I'd asked myself 1,000 times. Because when I retired, I wanted to be your father. Not Winfield Curtis who sent people to prison. I wanted you to know me as Dad, not as the prosecutor. But all these years, Violet and Philemon treated you like you were nobody, like you'd failed. I smiled slightly. I let them. People reveal themselves when they think you're harmless. He was quiet until we reached the precinct. North Precinct sat on College Way, a modern building that always smelled faintly of coffee and paper. I'd been here dozens of times over the years, though not in the last 5. Captain Morrison met us in the lobby. He was grayer than I remembered, but his handshake was firm. Mr. Curtis, sir, I heard you were involved. I wanted to personally ensure this case gets priority. I appreciate that, Captain. Though I'm just a witness here, my son is the victim. Yes, sir, but when Winfield Curtis witnesses a crime, we take notice. Your statement will carry significant weight. After Morrison left, Titus leaned close. He called you sir. You've been retired 5 years. Respect doesn't retire, son. You earn it over decades. That's what Philemon never understood. The statement taking was methodical. Detective Reed walked me through every detail while a video technician copied my phone footage. I provided timeline, observations, context. 35 years of courtroom testimony had taught me precision. Titus gave his statement separately. When we reconvened, Reed had paperwork. No contact order has been approved. Mr. Walters cannot come within 500 feet of you, contact you directly or through third parties, or communicate via social media. Violation means immediate arrest. Thank you, Titus said quietly. Trial date will be set at preliminary hearing, probably late July. Reed looked at me. The prosecutor assigned is Sarah Chen. Tough. She'll want to meet with both of you for prep. I nodded. Everything was proceeding exactly as it should. We drove home, my home, and I showed Titus the guest room. His bag looked small against the double bed. Dad, what was it like, being a prosecutor? I sat in the reading chair by the window. Like playing chess, except the pieces are evidence, witnesses, and time. You think 10 moves ahead. You prepare for every countermove, and you never ever underestimate your opponent. Did Philemon underestimate you? Completely. That was his first mistake. Hitting you was his second. That evening, my phone rang. Sadie, my neighbor from down the street. Winfield, I just heard the news. I was telling my book club about the arrest, and Helen remembered you from the papers. The federal prosecutor. Why didn't you ever mention it? Didn't seem relevant, I said mildly. Well, everyone's talking about it now. The Ballard Facebook group is exploding. People are saying Philemon picked the wrong family to mess with. After she hung up, I turned to Titus. The neighborhood knows, which means Philemon will know soon. Our element of surprise is gone. Does that matter? It accelerates the timeline, but that's fine. I have other moves in play. I called Gerald Patterson, an old friend who'd specialized in tax law after leaving the prosecutor's office. We'd worked a corruption case together in 2015. Gerald, I need analysis of a company, Walters Construction LLC, Seattle, everything public record. What am I looking for? Vulnerabilities, tax issues, licensing problems, contractor violations. Anything state or federal agencies might find interesting. There was a pause. Winfield, you're not building a case anymore. You're retired. This is personal. They hurt my son. I'm not prosecuting. I'm protecting. Understood. Give me 2 days. Violet called that evening. Titus answered. Put her on speaker. Titus, we need to talk. Your father has gone crazy. He's destroying everything. He's protecting me. You and your father assaulted me in my own home. It wasn't that serious. Dad just lost his temper. But now, the divorce, the charges. Please tell your father to stop. He hasn't done anything illegal. Neither have I. We're just using the system. The system? Titus, this will ruin us. Dad could go to jail. Then he shouldn't have hit me, and you shouldn't have laughed. Silence stretched. Then, I didn't mean... Yes, you did. That's what I finally understand. Gerald called back 48 hours later. Found what you needed. IRS debt, $45,000. Equipment loans in default. Multiple L&I violations. Safety issues. Employment documentation problems. It's a house of cards. Can you document it? Already have. Want me to? Concerned citizens should probably inform appropriate authorities. Anonymously. That evening, sitting in my home office with Titus watching, I finalized the reports for IRS and L&I. Every detail documented, every violation noted, anonymous but actionable. Will this work? Titus asked. In 3 to 4 weeks, Fileman will receive letters from federal and state agencies. Audits, investigations, fines. His business will be buried in bureaucracy. And he won't know it was you? He'll suspect, but suspicion isn't proof. I hit send on both reports. Besides, I didn't lie. I didn't falsify anything. I simply informed the appropriate authorities about violations that already existed. Titus nodded slowly. Dad, what was your biggest case? I leaned back, remembering. Organized crime ring, 2016, took 3 years to build. But when we moved, we took down 18 people in 1 day. The defense attorneys couldn't believe how tight the case was. Not a single acquittal. How did you do it? Patience, evidence, and never letting them see me coming. My phone buzzed. Text from Gerald. Found the tax issues. IRS will be very interested. Documents attached. I opened the files. $45,000 in unpaid taxes, equipment loans in default, safety violations, everything I needed. The wheels are in motion now, I told Titus. In a few weeks, Fileman's world starts falling apart, and he won't understand why. 5 weeks passed like a slowly tightening noose. The preliminary hearing came first, mid-May. I didn't attend, my presence wasn't required yet, but Captain Morrison called afterward. Prosecutor won't deal. Your testimony and video make this slam dunk. Walters is going to trial, July 15th. Thank you for letting me know. Winfield, his attorney knows he's in trouble, tried every angle to get a plea. Prosecutor's not budging. I relayed the news to Titus, who was drinking coffee at my kitchen table. He'd been staying with me for over a month now. The space suited him. He'd set up a small office in the spare bedroom, resumed freelance work, stopped apologizing for existing. 3 months until trial, he said. What happens between now and then? We wait and watch. The IRS letter arrived at Walters Construction on June 3rd. I knew because Gerald called that afternoon. Your tip bore fruit. Full audit, 3 years of returns. My source says they're being thorough. How thorough? Every cash payment, every deduction, every contractor. Fileman's accountant apparently told him he's looking at $60,000 in back taxes and penalties. I made a note in my legal pad. Another domino falling. The L&I inspection came a week later. I learned about it from Sadie, who heard it from someone whose cousin worked for the state. 12 violations at one job site, $75,000 in fines. Can you imagine? And they're referring it for criminal investigation. Something about undocumented workers. That's concerning, I said neutrally. Concerning? Winfield, the man is collapsing. His business, the criminal charges, everything. People are saying you planned it. I'm simply a witness in a criminal assault case. She studied me over her teacup. You know, I worked in that courthouse for 20 years. I saw a lot of prosecutors. You were different. You didn't just win cases. You dismantled people. I dismantled their crimes, I corrected gently. There's a difference. Violet lost her job on June 20th. Titus's phone buzzed with the news, a text from her that started with profanity and ended with blame. She thinks we got her fired, Titus said, showing me the screen. Did we contact her employer? No. Then she got herself fired. Scandal has consequences. His phone rang. Violet desperate now. He answered, put her on speaker. Titus, please. I lost my job. Dad's business is collapsing. We need help. You need help? Where was help when your father hit me? When you laughed? I know I made mistakes, but this is too much. Your father is destroying us. My father is doing nothing illegal. The IRS found tax problems. L&I found safety violations. The court is prosecuting assault. These are consequences. Consequences? My entire life is falling apart. Yes. That's what happens when you support violence against your husband. Actions have consequences. She hung up. Titus looked at his phone for a long moment. Dad, are we going too far? I set down my coffee carefully. What do you think? Should I have done nothing when he hit you? No, but everything happening at once. The IRS is investigating tax fraud he committed. L&I is enforcing safety laws he violated. Her employer made their own decision. I didn't fabricate anything. I simply ensured proper authorities knew about existing violations. But you knew this would happen. Yes. That's the difference between revenge and justice. Revenge is making someone suffer for satisfaction. Justice is ensuring consequences match actions. Philemon built a house of lies, financially, legally, ethically. I didn't knock it down, I just stopped holding it up. He was quiet for a long time. Then, I don't feel guilty anymore. Is that wrong? No, son, that's growth. The call from Brennan's office came on a Friday afternoon in mid-June. A paralegal, professional, and detached. Mr. Curtis? Attorney Brennan wanted you to know Mr. Walters has rejected our final plea recommendation. He insists on going to trial. I thanked her and hung up. Titus looked at me questioningly. He's going to trial? July 15th. Full jury trial. That's good for us, right? The video is clear. It's excellent for prosecution, terrible for him. Brennan knows it. That's why he wanted him to plead. Then why didn't Philemon take the deal? I thought about the man I'd observed at that dinner, the arrogance, the need to dominate, the inability to admit error, because he still thinks he can win. He still doesn't understand that he's not fighting me. He's fighting the evidence, the law, and his own actions. Titus was quiet for a moment. Then, Dad, what happens when someone like Philemon finally realizes they've lost? They get desperate. And desperate people make mistakes. My phone buzzed. Text from Captain Morrison. Prosecutor wants to meet with you next week. Trial prep. Building strong case. I replied, I'll be there. Outside, the summer evening was settling over Seattle. Somewhere across town, Philemon Walters was probably rage-calling his attorney, demanding strategies that didn't exist. Violet was probably calculating how little she could survive on. And I was sitting with my son, watching the sunset, knowing that justice, slow and methodical, was coming. The motion hearing came on a Tuesday morning in late June. King County Superior Court, 3rd floor. Judge Patricia Hammond presiding. I sat in the gallery while David Brennan, Philemon's attorney, argued that my video recording violated privacy expectations. Your Honor, the recording was made without my client's knowledge in a private home. This violates reasonable expectation of privacy. Judge Hammond reviewed her notes. Counselor, Washington is a one-party consent state under RCW 973.030. Mr. Curtis was a participant in the conversation. He had every legal right to record. Motion denied. Philemon leaned toward Brennan, whispering harshly. I caught fragments. What do you mean denied? Do something. Appeal it. Brennan's response was patient but firm. Sir, the law is clear. We discussed this possibility. There's no basis for appeal. We need to prepare for trial. Outside the courthouse, I called Titus. Video stands. Trial proceeds as scheduled. That's good, right? It's essential. Without video, case relies on testimony alone. With it, undeniable. A week later, Philemon's private investigator, the one he'd hired at significant expense, delivered his final report. I learned about it through Captain Morrison, who heard it through department contacts. The PI had found nothing. 35 years of federal prosecution, spotless. No ethics violations, no financial irregularities, no personal scandals. The PI had quit when Philemon couldn't afford the additional retainer. He spent $2,000 to learn what everyone already knew, Morrison told me over coffee. You're clean. I know, but desperate people look for miracles. Violet's social media campaign peaked in late June. Tearful videos about her destroyed family, posts calling me a vindictive man with connections, accusations of using the system for revenge. For a few days, the posts gained traction, shares, sympathetic comments from people who didn't know the full story. Then the community responded. Screenshots of the police report appeared in comment sections. People who'd hired Philemon's company shared stories of aggressive behavior and shoddy work. Someone posted, "Your father hit someone and you laughed. This isn't about vindictive prosecution. This is about assault." Within a week, Violet deleted the posts. But screenshots live forever. The divorce hearing came July 8th, a week before the criminal trial. I accompanied Titus for moral support, but stayed outside the courtroom. Michael Hartley, the attorney I'd helped Titus retain, was confident. Afterwards, Titus found me in the hallway. His face carried the first genuine relief I'd seen in months. We won everything. The house stays with me, no alimony, no emotional distress payment. Hartley's good at his job. Dad, he had documentation for everything. Bank statements showing I paid all the bills for 2 years. That loan you gave me for the down payment, he had it notarized with your affidavit. Violet's lawyer had nothing to counter with. Evidence matters, I said simply. That evening, Sadie called with the neighborhood gossip. Violet had moved to a cheap apartment in Renton. Fileman's business had officially filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy. The IRS was proceeding with its audit. L&I fines remained unpaid, growing with interest. People are saying you planned all of it, Sadie said, every detail from the beginning. I documented a crime and reported it to authorities. Everything else is consequence of Philemon's own choices. Still, it's like watching dominoes fall, one after another. The Friday before trial, I met with the prosecutor one final time. She was young, maybe 35, with sharp eyes and a methodical mind. Mr. Curtis, I've been reviewing your testimony. It's going to be powerful. Former federal prosecutor, eyewitness, video evidence. Defense has nothing. Don't underestimate Brennan. Desperate attorneys can be creative. Noted, but honestly, this is one of the cleanest assault cases I've handled. Your preparation made it that way. I nodded. Preparation. That's what 35 years had taught me. Criminal trials weren't won in the courtroom. They were won in evidence collection, witness credibility, documentation. Everything I'd done since that dinner had been preparation. Driving home, I called Titus. You ready for Monday? Nervous, but ready. Good. Remember, truth is our advantage. They have to spin, deflect, confuse. We just have to tell what happened. Dad? What if jury doesn't believe us? I watched the Seattle skyline pass by, summer evening light catching the buildings. Then the justice system failed, but I don't think it will. I've seen hundreds of trials. This isn't a close call. This is a clear case with clear evidence. And after, when he's convicted, then consequences continue. Bankruptcy, federal charges for those immigration violations, social exile. Not because I'm pursuing them, because they're natural results of his actions. Sometimes I feel bad for Violet. She looked so broken at the divorce hearing. I understand, but remember, she chose to laugh when her father hit you. Consequences aren't cruelty, they're accountability. That night, I reviewed my testimony notes one last time. Monday would be difficult. Testifying against your daughter-in-law's father, even when justified, feels heavy, but necessary. Justice often feels heavy. That's how you know it matters. The courtroom smelled like old wood and nervous sweat. I'd testified in dozens of courtrooms over 35 years, but never as a witness in someone else's case. The role felt strange, passive instead of strategic, answering instead of asking. Judge Robert Chen was methodical, late 50s, reputation for fairness and impatience with theatrics. Good draw for our side. Opening statements set the tone. The prosecutor was clinical. Simple case, defendant physically assaulted victim in victim's own home. 2 witnesses, video evidence, physical injuries documented. Evidence will prove guilt beyond reasonable doubt. She played the video. Even compressed to 1 minute, it was devastating. The shove, Titus falling, the sharp crack of the slap. Several jurors flinched. Brennan's opening was what you'd expect from a lawyer with a bad hand. Momentary lapse in judgment, family stress, no serious injury intended. Consider the context of a father concerned for his daughter's family. The jury looked unimpressed. I testified that afternoon. The prosecutor walked me through credentials first. Federal prosecutor, 35 years. Western District of Washington. Establish credibility before substance. Mr. Curtis, what did you observe on April 6th? I observed the defendant grab my son's shoulder and shove him forcefully. My son fell to the floor. The defendant then struck my son across the face with an open hand. What did you do? I began video recording on my phone. Washington is a one-party consent state. I had legal right to do so. Then I called Seattle police. Why? Because I'd just witnessed an assault. As a former prosecutor and citizen, reporting crimes is a responsibility. Brennan's cross-examination tried to paint me as biased, using connections, pursuing a vendetta. I stayed calm. Mr. Curtis, you could have handled this privately, family to family. Assault isn't a family matter, it's a crime. Would you suggest a witness to robbery handle it privately? You admit you have a relationship with Detective Reed? We worked together years ago. I have relationships with many law enforcement professionals. That's the result of a 35-year career prosecuting criminals. Brennan realized he was making me look better, not worse. No further questions. Titus testified the next day. His voice was steady but emotional as he described the assault, the humiliation, his wife's laughter. That's when I knew everything had changed. Under cross-examination, Brennan asked why he hadn't defended himself. He was bigger, aggressive, and I was shocked someone would do that in my own home. Several jurors took notes. I could read their faces, sympathy, understanding, disgust at what they had witnessed on video. The defense case was brief. Fileman testified against Brennan's advice. I watched him try to justify, explain, minimize. Under the prosecutor's cross-examination, he crumbled. You admit you struck Mr. Curtis? Yes, but it wasn't like they're making it sound. So you struck an adult man to get his attention in his own home? Someone had to teach him to be a man. Teach him through violence? Sometimes that's what it takes. Two jurors shook their heads. One woman in the front row looked horrified. Closing arguments came the next morning. The prosecutor was devastating in her simplicity. Video shows assault. Two credible witnesses confirm it. Defendant admits it, but claims justification. There is no justification for assaulting an adult in their home. Guilty verdict is the only appropriate outcome. The jury deliberated 3 hours. When they returned, the foreman's voice was steady. We find the defendant guilty of assault in the 4th degree. Fileman went white, then red. He started to stand. The bailiff's hand on his shoulder kept him seated. Violet was crying in the gallery. I sat in the back, expressionless. Titus exhaled for the first time in days. The sentencing hearing came 5 days later. Judge Chen reviewed the pre-sentence report, victim impact statement, video evidence. Mr. Walters, this was not a momentary lapse. This was deliberate assault on an adult in his own home. You showed no remorse in your testimony. In fact, you attempted to justify it. Sentence is as follows: 90 days King County Jail, 2 years supervised probation, 52 weeks anger management counseling, $5,000 restitution to the victim, $2,850 court costs. Bailiff, remand the defendant. Fileman stood as the bailiff approached with handcuffs. His face was twisted with rage. You destroyed me, he shouted, looking at me. I had a business, reputation. You took everything. Judge Chen's voice was sharp. Mr. Walters, you will remain silent. As they led him away, Fileman hissed in my direction. This isn't over. I spoke quietly, almost to myself. Yes, Fileman, it is. The courtroom emptied slowly. Titus and I were among the last to leave. In the hallway, Captain Morrison approached. Mr. Curtis, good work in there. Thank you, Captain. Though it wasn't work, just testimony. Still, you handled Brennan's cross perfectly. Titus and I walked to the parking garage. Summer afternoon sun breaking through Seattle's clouds. He was quiet until we reached the car. It's really over, isn't it? The trial, I mean. Yes, he'll serve his sentence. Probation after. But the criminal case is finished. And the other stuff, the bankruptcy, the IRS, that continues, natural consequences of his choices. But we're not pursuing anything more. We don't need to. He nodded. I feel not happy exactly, but relieved. That's appropriate. Justice isn't supposed to feel like a victory celebration. It's supposed to feel like balance restored. That evening, Titus made dinner, simple pasta. We ate in comfortable silence. What happens now? He finally asked. You rebuild. New job, maybe a new relationship someday. Life without constant criticism. You're free now. And them? They face consequences. But Titus? That's not our focus anymore. We look forward, not back. He smiled. First genuine smile I'd seen in months. Outside, summer evenings settling over Greenwood. Somewhere across town, in King County Jail, Philemon Walters was learning that actions have consequences. And here, in this modest house on 85th Street, We were learning that justice, though slow, arrives eventually. Philemon walked out of King County Jail on September 10th looking 10 years older. Gray stubble covered his jaw. His shoulders curved forward like a question mark. Violet waited by her car, a 10-year-old Honda she'd bought after selling the nicer one. The drive to his studio apartment in White Center was silent. She'd helped furnish it with donations from Goodwill, a twin bed, small table, 2 chairs, $950 a month, which she was helping him pay. That afternoon, his probation officer laid out the terms. Weekly check-ins, anger management every Tuesday, no contact with Titus, restitution payments of $100 monthly, 50 months total. Any violation meant immediate return to jail. Do you understand, Mr. Walters? Yes. Good. Make your first anger management appointment by Friday. That evening, Violet visited his apartment, brought groceries, helped him organize the small space. He sat on the donated couch, staring at nothing. If Titus had just taken the job, he began. Dad, stop. Her voice was sharp. Just stop. But if he'd listened, you hit him. I laughed. We destroyed everything ourselves. She was crying now. We thought we were better than everyone. We treated people like tools, and Winfield Curtis showed us we weren't untouchable. Philemon opened his mouth to argue. Then something broke. He put his face in his hands and cried, deep, shaking sobs. The first time she'd seen him cry in her entire life. What did I do? His voice was muffled. How did I become this? Violet sat beside him, hand on his shoulder. We have time to figure it out. But Dad, no more excuses, no more blaming others. The anger management class met in a church basement. 12 metal folding chairs in a circle, coffee in styrofoam cups, fluorescent lights. Philemon was the oldest. The counselor was patient but firm. Tell the group what brought you here, Philemon. Court ordered. I was convicted of assault. Tell us what happened. Own your actions. The words felt like broken glass in his throat. My son-in-law refused to work for my company. I got angry. I pushed him. He fell. Then I slapped him. A younger man across the circle frowned. Why'd you hit him? Because he wouldn't listen. He was disrespectful. I thought... Philemon stopped. The truth was worse than the lie. No, that's an excuse. I hit him because I was used to controlling people and he said no. I couldn't handle someone not obeying me. That's the first honest thing you've said, the counselor noted. Keep going there. 3 weeks later, Violet stood at the Target checkout, exhausted. 8-hour shift, lunch break spent eating crackers in her car because she couldn't afford the food court. Her feet ached. The red vest felt like a prison uniform. A woman she recognized from Ballard came through her line. Their eyes met. The woman quickly moved to another register. Violet finished her shift, drove to her apartment in Renton. $1,100 a month for 500 square feet. She'd sent her father $200 that morning, half his rent. Her bank account showed $43 until next payday. She microwaved ramen for dinner, ate alone while scrolling through Facebook. Someone had tagged her in an old post about the assault. New comments. That woman whose father... She laughed when he hit her husband. Karma's real. She closed the app, sat in silence, finally whispered to the empty room, What did we do? On September 20th, she dialed Winfield's number. Her hands shook so badly she had to try twice. Hello? Mr. Curtis, it's Violet. I know I have no right, but could I please speak with you in person? Long pause. She held her breath. Please, I need to apologize. I understand if you refuse. Tomorrow, 2 o'clock, my house on 85th Street. Thank you so much. I'll be there. Violet? This doesn't change anything legally or socially. This is just a conversation. I know. I'm not asking for more, just to be heard. She arrived at 1:55, sat in her car for 3 minutes, gathering courage, walked to the door in her Target clothes, the only clean outfit she had, rang the bell. Winfield opened the door, didn't smile, but stepped aside. Come in. The living room looked exactly as she remembered. She sat on the edge of the couch, hands clasped. Long silence. I don't know where to start, she finally said. Start with truth. The words came tumbling out. I was cruel to Titus, for months, maybe years. I criticized everything, his income, his career, his confidence. I let my father control our marriage, and when Dad hit him, I laughed. I actually laughed at my husband being assaulted. Winfield listened, face neutral. I told myself I was supporting my father, family loyalty. But it wasn't loyalty, it was cowardice. I was too weak to stand up to Dad, so I joined him in tearing Titus down. She was crying now. I'm so sorry. I'm so deeply sorry. I lost everything. My marriage, my job, my home, my friends, and I deserved to lose it. I hurt someone I promised to love. I enabled violence. I was complicit. You were more than complicit, Winfield said quietly. You encouraged it. You created an environment where your father felt entitled to assault someone. She nodded, crying harder. I know. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to hear that I finally understand what I did. And your father? Does he understand? He's beginning to. Jail changed him. Anger management is changing him. He's writing an apology to Titus through his lawyer. It's genuine, or at least I think it is. What do you want from me, Violet? Nothing. I want nothing. I just needed to say these words, to acknowledge what I did. That's all. Winfield studied her for a long moment. I never wanted to destroy you. I wanted justice. My son was suffering, being controlled, diminished, assaulted. I couldn't stand by. I understand. You protected him, like a father should. The consequences you're experiencing, lost job, divorce, poverty, isolation, those aren't my doing. They're natural results of your choices. I know. I'm not blaming you. You didn't make me lose my friends. My behavior did that. I appreciate you saying that, and I appreciate this apology. It takes courage to admit fault. Does Titus know I'm here? Yes, I told him you wanted to speak with me. What did he say? He said if you're genuinely apologizing, he's glad you're finding accountability, but he's not ready to see you. She nodded, fresh tears falling. I understand. That's fair. Winfield leaned forward slightly. Violet, I'll tell you something. Doors to change are always open, not for reconciliation necessarily. That's Titus's choice. But for your own growth. If you genuinely change, learn to respect others, build a better life, that's possible. But it's your work, not mine to forgive. Thank you for even saying that much. Everyone deserves a chance to change, but change is proven through actions over time, not words in a moment. After she left, I sat in my living room for a long time. The afternoon sun slanted through windows, dust motes drifting in light. She'd apologized, genuinely, I thought, without excuses or justifications. But acknowledgement didn't erase actions. Apology didn't restore what she'd destroyed. It was a starting point perhaps, but only she could walk the path forward. Titus called that evening. How did it go? She apologized, took responsibility, said she understood consequences were deserved. Do you believe her? I considered. I believe she's beginning to understand. Whether that leads to genuine change, time will tell. But it's not our responsibility anymore. Did you forgive her? I acknowledged her apology. But forgiveness? That's complex. She didn't wrong me directly, she wronged you. If anyone forgives, it should be you, and you're not required to. I'm not ready. That's valid. Maybe you never will be. Maybe someday you'll be willing to have a civil relationship if she demonstrates sustained change. But that's years away, if ever. Thanks, Dad, for everything. Always, son. Later, I received an email from Philemon's attorney, attached, a formal letter of apology. I opened it. Dear Mr. Titus Curtis, I am writing through my attorney as required by probation terms, but these words are mine. I assaulted you. I struck you in your own home because you refused to submit to my demands. There is no justification. It was not discipline or family correction. It was abuse. I spent 50 days in jail thinking about what kind of man I'd become. Someone who demanded respect but never earned it. Someone who controlled through fear rather than led through example. I don't ask forgiveness. I don't expect reconciliation. I simply want you to know I was wrong, completely inexcusably wrong. I hope you're building a good life. You deserve better than what I showed you. Philemon Walters. I forwarded it to Titus without comment. He could decide what, if anything, it meant. Outside, September evening was settling over Seattle. Somewhere across town, Violet was probably eating cheap dinner in a lonely apartment. Philemon was attending his anger management class, confronting his failures. And here, in this modest house, my son was safe. Justice had been served, not through revenge, but through truth, evidence, and accountability. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Days later, Titus sat at my kitchen table reading Philemon's letter for the 5th time. "I don't know if he means it," he said finally. "What do you think?" "I think he's scared and broken, and finally sees what he did, but I don't know if that's genuine change or just desperation." "Both can be true," I said. "Desperation can trigger genuine self-examination. Whether he maintains that awareness in years to come, that's unknown, but it's not our responsibility to monitor." "Do I have to forgive him?" "Absolutely not. Forgiveness is a gift, not an obligation. You can acknowledge his apology without forgiving. You were the victim. You owe him nothing. Part of me wants to be the bigger person. Being the bigger person doesn't mean accepting abuse or forgiving the unforgivable. It means maintaining your dignity and boundaries while they face their consequences. You've already done that." He folded the letter carefully. "So, I just do nothing? You live well. You build a good life. You learn from this. That's not nothing. That's everything." Sadie visited for tea the following week, bringing neighborhood gossip as always. "Everyone's talking about you," she said with a smile. "I can imagine. In a good way. People are saying you stood up for your son, protected him from a bully." "I simply reported a crime and testified truthfully." "Don't be modest. Philemon thought you were weak because you're quiet and retired. He learned otherwise." I smiled slightly. "Underestimation can be an advantage. I'll say, people respect you now, not that they shouldn't have before, but now they know who you are." That afternoon, I attended an online auction. The 1804 silver dollar came up. Rare, beautiful, expensive. I bid carefully, methodically. When the hammer fell at $85,000, I felt a quiet satisfaction. Not just owning the coin, but returning to this hobby I loved. Life continuing beyond the drama. Titus came home that evening excited about his new job. Rover.com had hired him as senior designer at $95,000 a year, nearly double his freelance income. "They love my work," he said. "Actually respect my ideas. It's so different from being constantly criticized." "Yeah." I forgot what it felt like to be valued. We made dinner together, something we'd been doing regularly. Simple pasta, salad, conversation about his day. The domestic peace I'd fought for. Later, sitting on the back porch, Titus asked, "Do you ever regret it? Calling police that night? Everything that followed?" I thought about the question. "No, I regret that it was necessary. I regret that your marriage ended. I regret that you were hurt. But my actions? No regrets." Violet and Philemon lost everything. They lost what they built on lies and abuse. I didn't take it. Consequences did. He nodded. "I'm glad I know who you are now. Really know." "I'm glad too, though I was always the same person, just with different history than you knew." "Why did you hide it?" "Because I wanted you to love me for being your father, not for being Winfield Curtis the prosecutor. Titles fade, relationships remain. You could have corrected Philemon when he called you a poor old man. To what end? Prove I had money? Would that have made him respect you? No. It would have made him jealous and angry. Better to let him underestimate until it mattered." We sat in comfortable silence, watching the sun set over Puget Sound. "What happens now?" Titus finally asked. "You build a good life. Great job, new opportunities, freedom to be yourself. I return to my hobbies and quiet routines. We have dinners together, talk about your day, normal life. And them? They face their consequences and either grow from them or don't. That's their journey, not ours." It feels anticlimactic somehow. Good endings often do. No dramatic confrontation, no grand finale, just resolution, justice served, wounds healing, life continuing. He smiled. "I like that." My phone buzzed. Text from Sadie. "Heard Violet moved to Everett. New job, fresh start, away from Ballard gossip." I showed.
Did you enjoy my story? What a journey it has been. I truly wonder, what would you have done if you were in my shoes? Would you have chosen silence to keep the peace, or would you have done what I did to reclaim your dignity? Let's meet in the comments below. I'm so curious to hear your thoughts. I'm reading every single one. Which city are you listening from tonight? If my story resonated with you, You can support me and help me bring more stories like this to the world by sending a super thanks. Your sweet support means the world to me and allows me to continue this journey with all of you. On the screen now, you can see 2 new life stories that I highly recommend you watch next. There are so many more on my channel, each with its own lessons and triumphs. Don't forget to subscribe and click the notification bell so you never miss a new chapter. Thank you for being here with me. Until the next story, with love and respect.